Good morning, Broncos fans, and welcome to Legends of Mile High, where we talk history and current events. And today we're going to talk about training camp because it is only a few days away. And I, for one, am very excited. I can't wait to be out there checking out practice, seeing what the new coach, Sean Payton, has in store for our favorite team, the Denver Broncos. Hopefully, it's going to be a much better run camp, much more exciting for the future. But we will find out soon enough. But there are some definite things that we should watch for, and I've already done the series on the 4 keys to watch for when you're out there to really kind of see a glimpse into the future of how this team's going to perform in regular season. But today, we're going to do a little bit of talking about players on the roster who will, if they do well and they succeed in training camp, they will impact the roster in other areas of the roster. So that will be felt across the roster, basically. That's what we're going to talk about today. And these are names that, maybe not big names that you would be thinking of, but these are the names that if that are going to be very important down the road. And part of that has to do with special teams, right? And I had a long conversation about special teams on the Wednesday show, Mile High Insiders, and special teams is super important. And before we even get into this, I just want to say Sean Payton has hired 3 coaches that specialize in special teams. So this is an important piece for Sean Payton. And not only that, I believe the draft that he had was really focused on special teams. If you look at who they drafted, I mean, obviously for the future as well, but he went out and got players who can contribute right away on special teams. So keep that in mind as we go through here, that this is going to be a big element of what we're watching at training camp. Got Kevin Gray coming in this morning saying, "Morning, Thomas. Big Mile High salute to Broncos country. 4 days to camp. Denver Broncos for life. Mile High Huddle for life." Kevin, I hope you're going to be out there. If you are, come say hi. I'll be out there from the 1st, hopefully to the 5th. If I can find a ticket. I didn't get a ticket on the 5th. Unfortunately, it was pretty hard to come by on the weekend, but I'm hoping to be there that whole time, but we'll see. But I'm definitely going to be there that week. Jeremy Sean, good morning. He's saying good morning, Thomas. Camp time is here. It came so fast. Yeah, I'm one of those that don't like to rush summer through, but it is coming up quick. And next thing you know, you're going to have that fall feeling, that football feeling that anybody who ever played football has, that smell in your nose. You just know that it is football season and it's coming fast. And I don't want to rush summer along because I've been enjoying it, but I am excited to see what the Broncos are going to put together this year. Dom's coming in saying, "Good morning, Thomas, Scott, and Broncos country. Denver Broncos for life." Dom, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Hope that you're staying nice and cool in that New Mexico heat. It has been hot for sure down here in New Mexico. So hopefully I'm going to be up in moving up to Colorado. We're really hoping next year. So maybe it'll be a little cooler up there. So I know this weather's been kind of crazy, but we're hoping to do that. So I'm just going to jump right in. Before I jump in, I just want to say I'm putting out the Mile High Legends on Mile High Huddle. So if you've missed those stories that I've told, I'm going to be putting a series of them out there, just the actual legends. So if you just want to listen to those old stories of Broncos legends, I think the first one's going to be coming out on Saturday, and I'll post it on Twitter. So yeah, look for that. Those are fun. I enjoy doing the research for those and telling the story. So check those out. But first things first, I'm going to go with JL Skinner, right? JL Skinner to me is one of those players who people aren't really talking about because he's a 6th round pick, but he's going to have an impact not only to the safety position, but maybe more positions. And here's why. So if JL Skinner can outplay his 6th round draft status, which I believe he will, because I think he fell in the draft due to injury. I think he was probably going to be drafted maybe the latest, the 4th round until that injury happened. But if he can show that he can actually play on defense fairly well and substitute for those starters, and play on special teams, of course. That is where his bread and butter is going to be early on. That's going to have an impact to the safety position because number one, if that happens, they may have second thoughts about Kareem Jackson, right? They may think that Kareem Jackson is expendable. But if they don't, I mean, they brought him in for a reason, right? They like his leadership, they like his experience. They brought him back on a really, cheap deal, so to really, especially if they have to cut him. But if they decide that they want to keep that veteran presence, and they know JL Skinner is one of those up and comers who's the future of the defense, but they want to keep him on the team now, not risk taking, send him to the practice squad or anything. That's going to have an effect on the safeties because PJ Locke, talking with Justin Simmons in that interview, go back and check it out. He specifically called PJ Locke's name out, and especially about special teams. So that's kind of the theme here. He's a good special teams player, and he can come in and as a sub. PJ Locke seems like he is a lock, pun intended, to make the team, right? He's one of those players that they really value his experience now and his ability to play special teams. And you got Caden Stearns, another player who's probably going to take over the starting role if his ascension continues, after that injury from last year. And then so then you're looking at 5 players, right? 5 safeties that they keep around if they decide to keep Jackson for his experience. So what are you going to do? That's going to impact other parts of the roster. You may see less wide receivers, or you may see less linebackers, something, right? That's going to have an impact. So my first player to watch out there when you're at training camp is JL Skinner, right? Go see how he's performing. If he can, if he doesn't get on the PUP list and he's actually out there playing and making some noise, that's going to have an impact, right? That I think he's one of the top guys to really pay attention to out there. And I know it's his 6th round pick, but he plays better than a 6th rounder if you go watch his tape. And man, big hitters, people that hit hard during those padded practices, they get coaches' attention, right? I mean, go back to when Terrell Davis, made that huge special teams hit in preseason. That opened up Shanahan's eyes to this guy. This guy's a player, right? From that big hit, and next thing you know, he's in the Hall of Fame. Going from he may not make the roster to a Hall of Famer. So, and that's not just that single hit, but that made people stand up and pay attention. So, Skinner can bring the wood. So he's going to make some noise if he's not on the PUP list for sure. So watch for him. Now the next one, and I talked about this, so hopefully I didn't spoil it too much on Wednesday, but I couldn't help myself. So I talked about this player who will have a big impact and someone to really watch. And again, special teams. Watch how this player is on special team, and that's Callaway, the wide receiver who came over from the Saints. So number one, he has already got a step ahead of everybody else because he's familiar with the offense. And he's, as a 5th wide receiver, he's productive enough to be a good 5th wide receiver. So if he's a good 5th wide receiver, he has to be able to play special teams. And he's played a little bit of special teams. He doesn't have a ton of special team snaps. So that's why when you're out there, pay particular attention to when, and I know special teams are boring. Sometimes people, they go off and, like people say, like Luke said the other night, he's tweeting when the special teams are out there, but special teams are important in football, and Sean Payton's got an emphasis on it. So watch Callaway and how he does in special teams. And I'm going to tell you why after I say hi to Keith. Keith Brugman's coming in saying, "Good morning, Thomas. What days will you be attending training camp?" Yeah, I'm going to be there the 1st through hopefully the 5th. I couldn't get a ticket on the 5th. It was sold out like immediately for the weekends. So I wasn't able to do that. And I'm not obviously important enough to get media credentials. So I don't know if I'll make it the 5th, but the other days from the 1st through that week, I'll definitely be there. So if you're there that time, stop by. I'll be around. If you run into me, say hi. We'll chat some football. So back to Callaway and special teams, right? So if he can play special teams, that makes him probably the fifth wide receiver. Because I'm putting Mims as the fourth, right? The rookie, he's definitely special teams. He's going to be probably going to be the punt returner. From my perspective, what I'm seeing, he's probably going to be the punt returner. So he's the fourth. Callaway's the fifth, and that leaves a bunch of wide receivers, on the outside looking in. They may keep six, but if that safety, if J.L. Skinner forces them to keep five, and they don't want to sacrifice more cornerbacks, they may cut from the wide receiver group, and they've done that before. They've used, and this is a new regime, I get it, but they have used five wide receivers and used the practice squad as kind of a minor league system where they put three of those young kind of up and comers who were good at special teams and could play offense on the practice squad. And because the practice squad rules have changed so much that it makes it easy to do that, right? So if they decide to only keep five wide receivers, that means KJ Hamler, Kendall Hinton, and some of these other young guys are probably, looking for a job somewhere else or coming back on the special teams if they have special teams eligibility, right? So from my perspective, Callaway's performance in special teams is going to land him that job. And if, so watch for that, right? Watch for him on special teams, because that's going to be a very impactful role coming in as the fifth wide receiver and on special teams. If you can't play special teams and you're on the roster, you're going to be inactive on game day. That's all there is to it. They can't afford to have somebody out there who sits on the bench and only plays a few snaps on offense and not playing special teams at all. And Jeremy, coming back in, talking about special teams. It's interesting that special teams is such a focus, and the main move was letting McManus walk. Yeah, I know it was strange to me. It wasn't strange that they let him walk. It was kind of the timing of it, right? They didn't have anybody else really in line. They just cut him loose, and then they went out and found, tried out some kickers, and they brought a kicker in, but they did it without having a plan, which to me was very interesting. I'm sure it was a cost-cutting move, right? And maybe they knew they were going to do it, so they just said, "Okay, we're gonna let you go so you can catch on quickly somewhere else," right? That was um, that was the kind of a weird way of going about it, and frankly, they're gonna have to try out more kickers during training camp. In my mind, like, you can't just start out there with Elliott Fry, right? You can't, it's very inexperienced, and maybe he's really impressive. Maybe he impressed them and was just hitting every kick. I don't know, but it was a strange thing. But I'm sure it was a cost cutting move type thing. And then, being a veteran that has been around, they wanted to let him catch on somewhere else quickly and not really have a competition with him. But yeah, I mean, they're gonna if there's close games and they have a kicker that isn't reliable, man, that's going to be a bummer for people watching that are fans of the Broncos. If you you let McManus go, although he wasn't, last year he wasn't, game winning all the time as well. He missed a few pretty important kicks. I went back and looked. There was a few games where he missed a field goal and the Broncos lost by a couple points. So not necessarily at the end of the game, but during the game he missed. So you hit the nail on the head there with the timing of that letting them go. And then Keith's coming back in talking about the players he's interested in watching, right? And these are great names: Dulcich, Alberto, Manhertz, Troutman during training camp. The tight end position, right? Yeah, that's going to be a interesting one. I actually think it's already kind of settled unless Alberto can really, really impress them in camp, right? I think it's Dulcich, Manhertz, and Troutman. That's going to be your lineup, and Alberto is probably gone. I only say that because he's not a great blocker, and I don't know how good he is on special teams. I really haven't seen him out there competing on special teams. So it's unless he's super, super impressive in camp, I think they kind of got the guys that they want. I mean, Sean Payton's already come out and talked about Dulcich, as a joker in that role. So, and then Manhertz and Troutman are ex-Saints. So it's kind of one of those things where the writing's on the wall. But it's going to be a competition, right? Because Alberto's very fast, a dynamic kind of pass catcher. So maybe he's really impressive in camp, running routes and catching balls and stuff like that. So maybe they have to think twice about it. But just from on paper, from the outside looking in, it kind of looks like it's a settled, uh, already kind of settled. So, but it will be fun to watch. I mean, all these guys are going to be fun to watch, right? I mean, there's a lot of interesting kind of storylines or players or position groups that really need to shake out, including defensive line, right? I mean, that's one to me that's still that rotation is a big question mark, and I've talked about that before. There's a big question mark there in the rotation of defensive line. So some of these young guys like Henningsen and Wazirike, if they can step up and really perform, then that's great. But if they're kind of, kind of taking a little bit longer to develop, that rotation may not be as good as we hope. So there's a few things, a few of those groups that we definitely need to watch shake out. And I think edge rusher is another one. I'm really interested to see what, excuse me, Christopher Allen can do. His injuries have sidelined him, in college and, obviously last year as he was healing up from his injury. But he's one of those players who can set the edge and rush the passer. If he can stay healthy, you're going to see that. You're going to see him making some noise in training camp, right? Because he's strong. I mean, he's definitely got that professional NFL body type. He doesn't have to develop a whole lot in strength like Nick Benito did. So if Christopher Allen can stay healthy, he's going to make some noise, and you might see that edge group shaken up. So there's a few of those that are out there that I'm interested in for sure. And I was hoping to see more of him in camp last year, but he couldn't. He was still injured, so he wasn't doing a lot of work, especially on defense during that time. And the last name on my list, who I really like and I think could make some noise, and that's Alex Palczewski, right? Now, I liked him before they went out and got Cameron Fleming back, but Palczewski comes from the Big Ten with a ton of play experience, right? An offensive lineman, if you're experienced, you kind of rotate along that line, can have a role early on. Now, he's a long shot, right? Undrafted free agent. He's a long shot. But the only other player that they have with experience at offensive tackle besides Cam Fleming as a rotational guy is Isaiah Prince. Isaiah Prince has been in the NFL technically for 5 years, but he's only played very sparingly. He was out 2 years. COVID, he was out, and I think he got hurt. So he doesn't have a ton of experience. So if Palczewski can make enough noise with that experience that he has in big time college games, he could probably push Isaiah Prince for that role. But the problem is, are the coaches going to be satisfied with just with having him on the roster and not another experienced guy? So that may force them to carry more offensive linemen than they want. Now, most likely, Palczewski is going to end up on the practice squad. I think that's probably where he's destined, but he's someone to watch. And the reason I keep saying that because he played in the Big Ten, has tons of experience playing. He's not just a really raw guy coming in with with upside. He's ready to make some noise. And I think if he does, that's going to impact the offensive line. They're probably going to carry one more player than they really want to, unless he's so good that they're like, you know what, Isaiah Prince, we'll see you later, or somebody else on the right, because they've got to shake out the interior offensive line too. They've got Fuller, they've got the Wattenberg, who they drafted recently. They've got Forsyth that they drafted this year. So there's some movement on the interior too that they have to consider. And anybody that can play both sides, left and right, or rotate through the interior, has a shot at making it. And I'm a big fan of Palczewski, and that's what I'm saying. If he can make some noise in training camp, it's going to impact that offensive line and maybe even the roster if they decide to carry someone with him and more experience. And Keith is coming in saying You've been big on Palczewski. If he hits, I'm giving you kudos for your eye for talent. Yeah, I hope so, man. I'm looking forward to it. I really, it's one thing about football players, right? He's a football player, and John Payton has obviously went out and got football players, and that's where I'm coming from, right? He may not be the most athletic and someone who comes in with a high, draft pedigree or anything, but he's a football player with tons of experience. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I don't want to oversell it. I think he's probably going to end up on the practice squad because they signed Cameron Fleming, right? If they hadn't went back and brought him in, then I'm giving him a bigger shot of making it onto the regular roster. But with that signing, who he can play both sides, right? Fleming's shown he can play both sides. That may have kind of sealed his practice squad fate. So Jeremy Shawn sounds like a chess player. Yeah, it does, right? He said it is not a real that you don't hear that as a football name, but it's funny, right? Yeah, it definitely. And Jeremy's coming back in talking about I'm really looking forward to watching the rookies. Any one of them can be legitimate impact players at their position. There's always a guy every year who you hear about right away. Yeah, and again, like I said, those especially the first Forsyth really wasn't, but the rest of those draft picks in my mind were definitely special teams type draft choices with an eye for the future. I mean, Drew Sanders, Mims, Skinner, Riley Moss, all can play. I think will be an impactful player on special teams right away. So that's going to get them on the roster, right? And I'm looking forward to it, and I'm also looking forward to seeing if Forsyth, who is not a tester, like a combine tester type guy. And I think that's what hurt his draft stock is he, instead of going to the games and the shrine or whatever, he went to the combine and tested and it wasn't that great. But he's a football player, right? And you've heard other like offensive linemen who played in the NFL talking about him specifically being a good player. So he may surprise some folks, but I still think it's Cushenberry and Fuller and Forsyth's kind of going to have to develop a little bit, but we we'll see how it goes, right? We'll see how it goes. I'm looking forward to it. We got Kevin Gray is just saying good show. Maybe next time all the convo will be there. I'm assuming you're saying you're probably not going to make it to the training camp, but that's all right. It's fun, but it's hot and it's tough to get out there. So, yep, I have to make a special trip all the way from New Mexico, so it's not easy. I wish I lived there; I could just go every day, but that would be awesome. But it's not easy to get there. But there's also the meet and greet coming up in October, Green Bay Packers game. So, if you want to come meet the guys who do the podcasts and write for Mile High Huddle, that's a great time to come out and hang out, tailgate. I mean, the Broncos fans do great tailgates, man, and they're very welcoming. So, most of them are the ones I've seen. So it's a fun time for sure. So if you can make it out to that, that'd be great. All right, those are my three, right? So watch for it when you're out there. Skinner, Palczewski, and Callaway, and I'll actually try and report on those guys specifically since I'm kind of looking at them. I'll pay special attention. So if you're not out there, and just check out what I have to say about them or write about them, and hopefully we can get that information out to everybody. So anyway, uh, I'm not going to do a Mile High Legend today, so I'm going to wrap up the show quickly today. I appreciate everybody being here. I'm going to bring back the Mile High Legend probably after training camp once we get going. So yeah, next Friday will be the start of training camp, right? So I look forward to talking about the very first day going in. But next Wednesday, Luke Patterson and I on Mile High Insiders will be doing a training camp preview. So don't forget to check that out because it's going to have a lot of great information and some experience from previous training camps would be great. Hey, and Kathy, good morning. It's good to see you here. Saying hi, Thomas in Broncos country. I'm excited for Christopher Allen, not a rookie, but feels like it. Yeah, we just talked about Christopher Allen, and yeah, I think he could shake up the edge group. But yeah, I hope you're feeling good and things are going great. So thank you for being here, Kathy. Really, really appreciate it. It's great to see you in the chat. So. Yeah. So anyway, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to wrap up the show. Those are my guys, and see you next week, same time as we kick off training camp. And again, don't forget to check out Wednesday, and then also, I'm on Saturday as well. We'll have something. Ron Wyatt and I will have something for you on Saturday. So check out those shows, and have a great day, Broncos fans.